had enough. We've had enough of hurting, and it's got to stop.
Rob Armstrong and his family have farmed in Victoria's west for 6 generations, but he's never been so close to giving up as the Victorian government prepares to hit farmers with a 189% increase on their fire levy.
It is actually really hard to believe a government, no matter who's in power, would actually think this was a good idea.
Introduced in the mid-1800s, a fire levy was raised to pay for local fire brigades, funded by insurance companies. The fee lumped on top of premiums. Only those with insurance paid the levy, but everyone benefited from the fire services. In the 1980s, state governments started taking control of the fire levy. Raised through council rates, all property owners had to contribute to fire services.
There's still a fair amount of smoke around this morning, but at least these people will be able to go home.
But as flooding, cyclones and extreme heat became as routine as bushfires, state governments started to split funds between all emergency service providers.
When did you send aid? When have you given them more money? You're taking it all away.
In Victoria, the Country Fire Authority, or CFA, are the regional fire brigades who receive a portion of the government funding. But farmers, some who voluntarily man the vehicles, say that the amount spent on the CFA leaves them without enough firepower to cope with the size and frequency of fires.
The other night we had a dry thunderstorm came through and it lit about 15 fires just south of here, and they were all put out by farmers.
Under imminent threat, farmers are forced to invest their own money to protect themselves from the fires which threaten their livelihoods. Privately owned fire units can range from a ute with a trailer, tank and pump, all the way to decommissioned service vehicles, costing $20,000 to $90,000.
The Westmere Fire Brigade, its area is 1 million acres. It has to look after 1 million acres. It has 19 CFA trucks and it's got over 400 private units. The fires would be so much more devastating if it wasn't for the private units.
During the fires which ravaged the Grampians over Christmas and into January, these private vehicles had a huge part to play in taming the bushfires.
If there was no private units there, it would have tripled the size that what was burnt. There is no way in the world would they have coped without the farmers.
Won't be able to respond at this point due to lack of numbers.
Insufficient members present at the moment.
Inaccessible with CFA resources. I'm on my way in private vehicle. Can you mark our tanker on scene?
On the 1st of July, Victoria will join Queensland, the ACT, WA, South Australia and New South Wales in merging the fire levy with funding for other emergency services, naming it the Emergency Services and Volunteers Fund. The fund will accumulate $1.6 billion in its first year alone, each contribution based on a fixed rate plus a property's type and value, known as capital improved value. The rates for homes will double, as will the rates for businesses. But the rates for farms will almost triple.
We are setting a progressive, proportionate tax based on the capacity for people to pay.
The Victorian government defending the levy increase, offering a full rebate for farmers who volunteer with emergency services and whose properties are valued under $5 million.
We have recognised the hard work of volunteers, and that's why we've allowed for an exemption.
But the exemption falls short, with the average price of a Victorian farm over $7 million.
We've got farmers, many of them paying in excess of $50,000 a year extra on their rates bill than what they would have normally. That's a massive thing to accommodate.
The Victorian Farmers Federation calling for the government to stop.
It's ludicrous when you think about it, and it actually begs the question, well, what is the responsibility of government anymore?
It's gut-wrenching. You get out here, you work 7 days a week, rain, hail, sun, trying to provide food for everyone else. You feel like, why do we bother?
The Victorian government responding in a statement.
We're making sure our emergency services have the sustainable funding and equipment they need to keep Victorians safe.
Help us put out all the fires that we do anyway, not charge us for it. It's just bloody disgusting. Why should I risk my life putting out a fire when I'm being charged for it? It has to get this bad before a farmer like me gets on television to try to get people to listen. That's it.
You can just hear the distress, and what feels so profoundly unfair about it is that droughts, bushfires, natural disasters already disproportionately impact farmers.
Absolutely.
Like their crops, their livelihood. And there's this disconnect between people living in cities and people living in regional or rural communities. And I can just see how frustrating that would be, because it's all of us who are going to have to spend more on groceries if it's imported and if we can't provide for our own country.
And for these families who've lived and worked this land for 6 generations, it's understandable that their kids would be like, this is too much hassle.
Of course.
And to be sitting on land that just happens to be worth $7 million, that's not liquid.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
haven't got that
exactly.
cash in the bank. That's just a piece of property that is now worth $7 million because property in this country
It's just gone through the
roof.
Yeah.
So to be penalised for that, it's just ridiculous.
And it's such a small percentage of the voting population. So the cynic in me is going, oh, well, it's an easy one to sort of pick on them.
We're going to sort it out. The farmers cop it all. and then, they're
such
doing
a tough job.
everything.
It's screwed by everyone, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
the government, supermarkets, I mean, the weather.
Exactly.
It's just, what a life.
Mm-hmm.